Today's special guest that I've prepared for you today, and this is going to be part of an ongoing series, is the one and only Benny the Buff from Texas. And for anyone who may not know you in the audience, would it be okay if I could get maybe a quick introduction from you?
Yeah, most definitely. My name is Benny the Buff. I go by TK Sahar, TK_Sahar on Twitter. I've been playing Tekken since Tekken 2. I'm a huge Gigas fan. I'm a Gigas main. I play King on the side as well. Um, I host tournaments known as the Powerbomb tourneys. I usually do them weekly. Hasn't been weekly just because of what's been happening so far with like Texas and as also my school schedule. But yeah, that's pretty much me in a little Cliff Notes version. I will go more into detail as the interview goes on, though.
All right, perfect. Thank you very much. And so first things first, this is something I always like to ask people. When did you
Mhm.
first get into playing video games, and sort of how did that happen, right?
So for me, my first video game that I ever played was Donkey Kong 64 on Donkey Kong 64 on obviously the Nintendo 64. That was my first game. I played that back when I was like I think 3 or 4. I would usually watch my brother play because I would be too scared to like mess up anything. I have an older brother; he's 5 years older than me. But I'd always watch him play because I'd be too scared to like do anything with the character. I'd feel like I would die if I even touched the like control stick moving forward or whatever. But that's what got me into gaming. I played a lot of Sonic Adventure. On we had a Dreamcast, so played a lot of Sonic Adventure. And then the other games that kind of I would say helped me grow my taste of video games eventually was a lot of the PlayStation exclusives like Ratchet and Clank, Spyro, Jack and Daxter, and eventually Sly Cooper. Those 4 games were kind of my building blocks of like what would help me choose my video games moving forward. Then I got introduced to Tekken 2 eventually, and yeah.
Yeah, well, those are all very, very classic games, and I can definitely approve
Mhm.
of those titles.
Yeah,
Unfortunately, when
definitely.
I was growing up, my parents weren't as big on video games, so I sort of grew up on a more, well, semi-budget. Like, I played a lot of
Mhm.
Pokemon, of course, it's kind of more to be
Oh
expected
yeah,
at my age.
Pokemon.
But
Yeah.
I did
Hmm.
actually have a Game Boy Color, and I played a lot of really older games that were only in Japanese, which was kind of hard because there's a language
Hmm.
barrier. But
Hmm.
yeah, very, very interesting, and of course, very classic games. And in Tekken 2, I'm gonna guess you probably main King then.
Oh yeah. I played. I don't know, dude. Something about it. The guy with the jaguar mask. I thought it was a tiger at the time, but regardless, so just something about the dude wearing that mask and doing those wrestling moves. I saw him do like just whatever wrestling grapple, and I was like, holy shit, this guy's awesome. Like my like 6-year-old mind, 5-year-old mind was blown watching this guy like this polygon just do all this stuff, like he's literally just a polygon like at that point, right? You can't really even tell what he's like what he actually looks like because the graphics were so crap back then. But my little like 5 to 6 year old mind just blown away just watching him do all this fantastic like athletic abilities, and I've been hooked ever since. He has been the only character I've ever played. Like I would mess around with some other characters, but all the way up until I would say like 5 or 6, Tekken 5 or 6, I played him exclusively.
Yeah, absolutely. I know a lot of people do definitely mention that that is one of the aspects of King that really got them into it. When they were young, they saw, King doing all these like really amazing things, or they were sort of wrestling fans themselves, and they saw King doing this, and they're just like, wow, like, this is like amazing to me, right?
Yeah, that's another thing. That's another thing. Yeah, grew up on a lot of WWE, right? Growing up, all we had was just cable, so we would
Yeah.
watch a lot of WWE and like sometimes Raw every now and then. And Rey Mysterio and Eddie Guerrero before he passed away, they were huge like influences on me. Like just watching all their stuff, but it was just so freaking cool. Like watching Rey Mysterio do the 619, and then seeing they implemented that in Tekken 5. I was like, yo, absolutely insane. That's what got me into King and Tekken for sure.
Yeah, well, I guess I should probably ask this now then. Out of all of King's wrestling moves, what right now do you think is your absolute most favorite?
My favorite move for King, I would have to say, is the Tijuana Twister. So it's the same. It's the same input for giant swing, but instead you do two instead of one. I don't know. I think it's fucking cool. Like he picks up the dude, right? Throws him up in the air, and then catches him again, full body weight. Like, do you understand how strong you have to be to like not only pick them up and not only like pick them up, but throw them up in the air, catch them again, then just full body weight, throw them back down? It's insane. It is. Yeah, but that's probably my favorite like move for King in general, like a grappling move at least. But yeah,
Yeah, well, I mean, there's just so many to choose from, right? Giant swing, Tijuana
oh
Twister,
yeah,
Muscle
hmm
Buster, the Hulk
hmm
Hogan kick that he just got.
hell yeah, no, all fantastic.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, jeez, it's just Then honestly, once I get the time, I really want to actually try to learn King. In fact, I guess this is kind of like a weird little cutaway advert, but Chenzo here in the chat, we're gonna be doing interviews with him. He's a very very accomplished King player himself. So
Yeah.
yeah, not only will I be talking about just commentating with Chenzo because he does a lot of commentating himself, but I will also hopefully be able to do down the line a teach me King with Chenzo sort of thing, sort of like what
Oh
King Play
yeah.
does. So yeah, if you want to learn the ways of King from Chenzo, then absolutely you should all come down and check it out. So again, I know it's a little bit like of an inopportune timing, but just because we're on the topic, I figured we might as
Oh
well.
no, yeah, no problem at all. I've seen Chenzo play. He plays a fantastic king. He plays a really good king.
Absolutely. Well, of course, I think anyone who has been in here for like a little bit probably knows that we're going to be talking a lot about Tekken 7 because that's, of course, the most recent version of Tekken that's been out. But besides Tekken right now, what other games do you sort of play within your day-to-day life?
Uh, Recently I've been playing a lot of Destiny 2. I played vanilla Destiny, so like Destiny 1, and I played Destiny back when it was an alpha. I was a huge fan of Bungie, so I've been playing that a lot recently. Monster Hunter World, I still get on it pretty now and then. Not as often as I used to, but I really love Monster Hunter. Loads of fun. I also play, I mean, obviously Tekken on the setup, but we're not talking about that. Call of Duty and Modern Warfare. I like Modern Warfare a lot. I think it's probably one of my favorite Call of Duties that they came out in like recent time. I just like the animations and the recoil patterns of that game. I would say because I'm a sucker for animation. I love good animation, right? Especially just watching like small things like a reload animation. It's so beautiful to see how well they designed the animation in that game. So I love that game, and then Apex Legends as well. Fantastic animation in that game. Love the characters. I played Gibraltar. I played him. Now I didn't play him ever since. I played him ever since he was like bad. So I was a day one Gibraltar main. Now he's like extremely strong. But I played him when he was bad. So I don't want people thinking like I'm just picking top tier.
Really, Gibraltar's good now? Wow.
Yeah, he's fantastic, dude. He's stupidly strong. Yeah,
Jeez.
they buff the crap out of him. So it's like, oh yeah, big boy got some love, and I'm happy about that.
I mean, I gotta say, when Apex Legends first came out, that's probably the one reason why I stuck with it for a while, is because Gibraltar, really was like the sort of more like local Hawaiian. Technically he's supposed to be
Yeah.
like Maori, but like he very much has a local sort of vibe to the way he speaks and acts. So that's one reason why I really got into it. But
The voice acting in that game's fantastic too.
oh
That's one
yeah,
thing I want to else add on to. Like I love voice acting. Like if it has fantastic voice acting, I'm all in. Like I don't care.
yeah, and I
That's
mean
another thing to add on
they
to.
did a spectacular job with him too. Like again, he
Mm.
really just feels like he gives off that specific vibe. I could see him being
Yeah,
like one of the guys down at the beach, like after surfing, was just really buff, and it's like, oh, but you
yeah,
all good?
yeah. Super wholesome dude. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm also kind of a Monster Hunter geek myself. I really got into World. Before that, I had stuff like Shriji as well, but not as much. I didn't get as much into it back in those days, unfortunately. But I have to ask since you brought it up. What is your favorite monster out of all of them?
My favorite monster to fight. I think my favorite monster to fight that I could always go back to is probably Nergigante. But besides that, I also really like fighting Devil Joe. I like here's the thing. Like Devil Joe's mad freaking annoying. Let's get straight, right? Because he's literally nothing but just muscle. But no other monster fights like him in the game to the point where like he's just so relentless. Even if you trap him, he's still gonna try to attack you. And I'm like, oh my god, this is the closest to what I would think like Godzilla would be in a monster hunter game, right? Just constantly trying to attack you, constantly aggressive, and no matter what you try to do to him, he's just gonna keep going. He's just a freight train on wheels. So I was like, oh shit, I have to be on my A game to fight him. Soloing him is not fun, but you kind of do feel that huge accomplishment whenever you do beat him, even if you do solo him. So I have lots of fun fighting Devil Joe for sure.
Yeah, no, I know that feel. Jeez, like if I'm gonna be honest, like once I fought Devil Joe a few times to get like a few specific weapons, I'm like, yeah, I'm not gonna fight Devil Joe again.
Yeah,
Instead, yeah, what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna use him as a dog. So I'm just gonna bring him into areas to just attack other
yeah,
monsters.
bring him to areas. Yeah, yeah, make him attack like the main monster you're hunting, and then all right, cool, I'm gonna take the rest.
Yeah, I mean that's just a classic strat. I mean, honestly though, like there's so many good monsters like Rajang, like the way that
Oh
they
my
actually
god.
animated Rajang was
Yeah.
just it's amazing, and it's hilarious to see the footage of when they're actually like getting the motion capture because he's
Mhm.
this guy with like crutches and it just looks like ridiculous what he's doing with like a water ball and everything. But like when it's in the game, it just looks so amazing. Or what's another one? Fatalis too. It's just so brutal, but like once
I
it
also like
becomes
I also like Narakuga. Narakuga is super cool.
oh
I
yeah.
think I love the fact whenever it gets enraged, like it's the red eyes, like they trace everywhere. I think that's like super cool. It's a super cool fight as well. I would say extremely aggressive character. So, or sorry, extremely aggressive monster. I like fighting aggressive monsters because it allows me to. I do sword and shield. That's my main go-to. You can never go wrong with like sword and shield. It's always useful. I used to do heavy bow gun. So back then I used to hate fighting aggressive monsters because with the
Oh
heavy bow
yeah.
gun you can't do crap, right? You like, oh crap, I need to roll out the way, but it takes like 5,000 years. But yeah, I stuck with a lot of sword and shield. And then I got better like that, and yeah,
Yeah, things are pretty tough until you get the golden Rathalos armor, and then it's just like, oh, and
yeah.
I can use greatsword, and you just absorb all the damage and then heal it all back.
Take all the damage. Greatsword does so much damage. My God, but a lot of good builds with it too.
Oh yeah, I mean honestly though, like at this point, since I play the game every now and then, but I've completed pretty much everything. I just do like hunting horn.
Hmm.
Anyways, oh, and hello, it's Tipsy. Welcome. I don't know if I've seen you on the channel before. Again, unfortunately, my brain's a little goldfish with memory, so sometimes I'll remember people, sometimes I won't. But yes, all the same, welcome. So yeah, again, I'm here with an interview with TK Sahar, aka Benny the Buff. And anyway, see, I know we went a little bit into Monster Hunter, and for anyone who hasn't played it, I do definitely suggest it. But that
Hmm.
is, not the main topic of the day. So moving on, I guess this is the part I'm interested in. So I know that you play Gigas, of course, right? We did go over that in the
Hmm.
introduction as well, but I'm sort of interested. What led you to go from playing King and all the other franchises, or at least I would assume all the other franchises, into playing Gigas?
So, I've been playing King, technically speaking, since Tekken 2, and he's not bad in Tekken 7. To be honest, this is his best. I would say his best iteration since Tekken 1, because Tekken 1, you're just down 4-1 in the giant swing that shows guaranteed. It was dumb, but I would say eventually I did end up getting somewhat bored of him, and at a higher level play, King can be uh, definitely harder to do. Like he was definitely harder to play than a lot of other people give him credit to. Like yeah, he's an easy character to pick up. Don't get me wrong, but it's harder to kind of get in there and to do what you want. Like 4-4-1 can only take you so far, and then you have 4-4-1+2 that could only get you so far. And it's like, all right, well, I want to play another character. It's a little bit easier to play at a higher level of play, and something I don't really have to focus on a lot because he does have good punishment game. Don't get me wrong, but it's like shit. Let me just try something a little bit easier where I don't feel like I'm trying super hard all the time, where I don't really need the execution of doing instant shining wizards, right? And then knowing my grabs and not just that, but just the proper punishment. And then I picked up Gigas on a whim. And I was like, all right, let me play Gigas because I think it was Yojin Boy. He was I forget who he was fighting. But it was him. No. It was Puma. It was Puma versus I forget the other guy's name. Dang, it's like something with a D. It was Puma versus It was the Grand Finals, and Puma was playing King because that's what he meant, right? He was in his rage. He was in rage, and I forget what the Gigas player's name. So I'm having brain fart right now. But he ends up using the Howl, right? The one where like he gets a full armor and he can't do anything unless you low him, and he absorbs King's what do you call it? Rage drive. I was like, holy shit, you could do that with Gigas? Are you fucking kidding me? And that's what wanted me to play Gigas. And then I picked up Gigas. I was like, man, this character is actually a lot of fun, and I like a lot of simplicity in Tekken. Because at the end of the day, yes, you can have like you have your guys who like main Kazuya, you have your guys who made like the Mishimas or like high execution characters, right? But at a higher level of play, whenever there's a lot of pressure on the line, sometimes you might not be feeling your A game. I like to fall back to something that I know is consistent and something that I know is reliable. That's not gonna like that I should virtually not fuck up. He has the best 10 frame punish in the game. I don't have to worry about anything that's like 11 frames, 12 frames, 13 frames, 14 frames. Bro, I can just 1, 2, boom, easy, right? Anything past that, all right, down 2. He's a very satisfying character, and I think that's what um, seeing 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 that happen with Gigas, and then be actually playing him and actually understanding like how much fun he could actually be. That's what made me play Gigas, and then I made like a mission like, all right, let me see how far I get. I got to like Raijin, Fujin, and I was like, all right, cool. But yeah, I mean, I love Gigas, regardless of all his flaws, regardless of all like the quality of life stuff that I believe he should get more. He's still a very fun and entertaining character, and that's what matters the most, right? Like you shouldn't always just play a character just because he's top tier. You should play a character because you love them. And I can 100% say that and this is me saying I don't love King anymore. I fucking love King. I have a King poster like literally in my background, you know. But I love Gigas. Gigas is just so much fun. He's so goofy, and yeah, that's the reason why I picked him up.
Yeah, and honestly, I've noticed this when I play, right? A lot of times it feels like a very uphill battle when you're playing against very good people. Like, for example, I like to bring this one up a lot. My match, me versus Rip, where I almost won against Rip somehow. He was playing a little weird on that day, but just the fact that the beginning was an uphill battle. It was like 0-3, and then all of a sudden things started to click, and then, all of a sudden I'm like I-25 hop kicking him, and I'm like, this is just the absolute definition of satisfaction. Like,
Yeah,
no one
exactly.
expects you to do the I-25 hop kick, but then you just pull it out, and it's just like, wow, that worked.
Yeah.
That's probably going to do some mental damage.
Yeah, it's a lot of head games with Gigas because that's the thing. Like he's still an anomaly, you know. Regardless of the statistics saying like he has like the highest win rate. He's still an anomaly. Not everyone knows how to deal with the Gigas because there's so many different ways, and that's the beautiful thing about Tekken in general. Like there's not one set way to always play a character, right? Like yeah, like you have your wave dashing Mishimas, right, and you're like down forward 2 into perfect electro wing godfist like Kazuya's, right? But that's not the only way to play them. Like these guys also have a grab game. These guys are also like they can play defensively, aggressively, and that's the same way with Gigas. That's what I love about Tekken. There's so many different ways to play one character, which is what makes me constantly come back.
Right. It looks like yeah. Chenzo was saying that you are absolutely correct about King and your analysis that he's currently probably in his best iteration as of now.
Oh,
And
oh
I
yeah.
don't have to disagree. That forward one kind of does everything, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely does everything. I would say that's probably my second favorite move. It's just so satisfying, dude. And that counter hit, oh my god, the sound when you get that counter hit, ooh, so good. It's like biting into a really crispy piece of chicken, you know, like a really crispy fried piece of chicken. Like you get that juice, and it's like, ah, damn, it's really good. It's just satisfying, you know. Can't go wrong with it.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, man, honestly, once I learn King, God, I know I'm gonna be probably abusing the hell out of like forward one and like his shove and stuff like that. I mean, I already abused the hell out of his nipples of justice. So so
Very underrated move.
yeah, very very underrated move. But man, it's so good for setting up a lot of different things. I guess this is also just a theoretical though. So you already have Gigas and you have King, but if you were going to get into another character in theory, what character do you think that would be?
So I play a lot of Heihachi on the side. I'm not going to say I'm good with Heihachi. I'm okay with them, but another character that I would like to put more time into is Miguel. Miguel is so underrated. Well, he's super good right now, and there's something about his one like if you ever backdash with Miguel, like switching from Gigas backdash to Miguel, oh my god, dude, it's like it's orgasmic how good it feels. It just feels so good. His backdash is so good. It just makes me want to cry. Like that's how good it is. But Miguel has fantastic backdash. I love his damage, and he has I like how like yeah, you know, he has T-Rex arms that kind of blows, but he has really long legs and he has some decent pokes. And not a lot of people really know what to do when he gets into Savage, because that's the thing. Like you don't want to let him to get into Savage. And then at that point, you don't want to press buttons. And not just that. Like I watch a lot of Glaciating, right? Glaciating plays a fantastic fantastic Miguel. I've been watching him play a lot. It's like, my god, like this is just insane character, super underrated. If I were to put more time into Tekken, and if I had more time, you know, without school being in the way, I'd probably put more time to trying to pick up Miguel, and maybe go back to playing a little bit more of Armor King as well.
Ooh, Armor King.
Yeah.
And welcome, Zachary. Yeah, so you came in at a pretty good time. We were just almost about to get into the section about talking about tournaments and how to organize them and whatnot. So yes, welcome. Never too late to the party, of course.
What's up, Zach?
Yeah, let me think. And oh yeah, that's right. He was registered to play in the Powerbomb that did unfortunately have to get canceled this week. But yeah, let's see it. So, there is a few other things to talk about before we get into that. Most specifically, the newest of the Tekken news, which is the new character. And, you know, I am sure there's probably a lot of different opinions floating around, honestly. But, yeah, let's get your take on that. I'm very interested to see what you have to say on that.
Tekken's always been known for, like, wacky stuff, right? Like, I mean, I made a tweet about it earlier. Like, we have Craig Marduk, right? Every time he does his intro, he throws a fucking truck. I don't know where the fuck he gets that truck. Then you have Negan with his RV that just goes everywhere, apparently. Even in, like, the Mishima dojo, right? And then you have, now this new lady has her limousine. I mean, whatever. Like, I don't care. Like, I don't care if what the character is at the end of the day. I was just more upset about the build-up, I guess. It's like, alright, cool. Nothing else is really talked about. I love Tekken. You know, I have a lot of love for Tekken. I wouldn't complain about Tekken if I didn't like it. But here's the issue with Tekken, I would say. Unfortunately, they don't listen to their player base as much as they should. But I think another thing is that obviously the Tekken scene is majority dominated by Koreans. Now Pakistani players are starting to pick up too, which is good. But I believe that the Korean players, I don't feel like they're more. They should be a little bit more outspoken, I would say. Like, and correct me if I'm wrong if they're not outspoken. Or same thing with the Pakistani players. But like, anytime a game needs balance, especially if it's a competitive game like Tekken is, the top players should be the ones who should be talking about. All right, here's what I think needs balancing. That's what they did with Tekken 5. That's why Mishima Star is a balancing. He's like the head of balancing, right? Because he did so well, and I think it was like some evil time. Again, correct me if I'm wrong, but he became the balancing department dude. So, in my opinion, I wanted Tekken 8 already. This game is hitting almost 5, maybe 6 years now, so it is a huge headache. And there's only so many characters you could put in a game that is complex like Tekken. Like, you could argue like, oh, Super Smash Bros. And some people don't even count that as a fighting game. It's a fighting game at the end of the day. But that game has so many characters, but the matchups aren't as complex as it is in Tekken, where every character has at least 80 plus moves. So, like, you could tell I'm frustrated, so that's why I wouldn't be sighing. But just a little bit better communication. Have a head of just have like a head of like the community, like other games do. Like a good example is like Rainbow Six. They have a head of the community. They have a community figurehead. They have a community figurehead for Destiny. So make Markman a community head. Like, he'd be a perfect community. It'd be like, hey guys, I know you guys have some issues. Talk to me about it. I could go talk to whatever you call it about them, or fucking Anakin, or just make. I would say they should have one for each region. That
Right.
might be a little bit too much, but I think that'd be cool. Have one for America, Europe, South America. Every region, because there are killer players in every region. That way the players don't. The people who play your game don't feel like they're not being listened to. Because that's another thing with Tekken. I'm sorry, I'm about to close this rant. That's another thing about Tekken, that yes, it does require a lot of legacy knowledge, but that should not be the reason why your game shouldn't be approachable. Arya said it best. The Salami guy. He said it best by saying fighting games should be easier to understand. There shouldn't be as many barriers, because again, at the end of the day, a fighting game is about like two people coming together, regardless if they know each other or not, just playing, right? And it's a game about understanding your opponent, and there shouldn't be a barrier of knowledge like that. You should be there. There should be a thing that allows you to understand the mechanics of the game, like how to KBD, when you should sidestep, what a counter hit is. Not a lot of people don't even know that. I'm still learning things about Tekken, and I've been playing this game for like 15, 20, like whatever years, right? So it's just all right. That's my issue, at least when it comes to what was shown, and just how the developers are treating the community in this sense. I do like everything they do. Don't get me wrong. Like, they brought us a fantastic game, but there needs to be more communication.
Right. Yeah, no, I definitely agree, right? And I guess I'm picking up on your rant here, right? I don't mind rants at all. I'm honestly probably one of the biggest ranters, at least in my hometown. So, yeah, but definitely one thing that needs to, I think, feel better is the fact that there's this Japanese bubble that exists, right? And you see it not only with just the community, but also with even the way that netcode is developed, right? GGPO isn't being implemented because there's a Japanese bubble. Instead of trying to use GGPO and outside source code from the US that is
Yeah.
basically, it's open source, right? Anyone could use it for like, I don't know, $10 or whatever. I forget
Hmm.
how much if they actually charge or whatnot, but it's relatively cheap at worst. And of course, yeah, the Japanese are going to use it, and it's not because they don't necessarily know about it, or because there are definitely companies that probably don't. But even with companies that do, their choice tends to be more to create their own sort of weird version, like the Kagemusha program and whatnot. And I think part of the problem too is that some players tend to have way more of a say, or it feels like they have more of a say than others. Like the main man, for example, it
Oh
feels
yeah.
like a lot of the things he says just
Mhm.
comes true, and it's just like not all of them are good, right? It's
Yeah.
the problem is that you need to balance the opinions of many other people. It's not just
Mhm.
these few people should have a say, and then all of a sudden, it comes true, and then you get the main man now complaining about ranked when he's the one that proposed some of the rank changes in the first place. Like,
Mhm. Mhm.
it sort of came back to bite him in the ass, and it probably would not have been so bad if there were maybe a lot more opinions. And there is definitely also, again, like the idea of that knowledge coming into the game, right? And this is why Smash, for a lot of people, is a very good fighting game. It's very accessible because it's just
Mhm.
a few button presses, and you can get very deep into the mechanics like wave dashing and whatnot. But at the end of the day, the surface is pretty simple. It's not a huge knowledge check with most of the characters, right? Was with Tekken, and this is admittedly like a problem with characters like Lei. You have like these huge knowledge barriers for a lot of players at the beginning, so they'll get very frustrated because they're just getting hell swept by Lei, and have not having a tutorial doesn't help, of course. But even with Tekken, there's just so many more complicated interactions, right? Even with
Yeah.
Street Fighter, right? It's mostly just, is this move punishable or not punishable? It's a yes or no
Yeah.
answer. Whereas in Tekken,
Yeah.
it's like, is this move punishable? Is this move steppable? Is this move X, Y, or Z? Can you low parry?
Mhm.
Then when you can punish it, what frame is it? And then you have to take into account the net code, and then it's like, oh boy, now I have to like add like 2 frames to whatever move. So now instead of like, it being like -9, it's -11. So now I'm doing like a safe move, and now I'm getting punished for doing a safe move. Like, oh god.
Yeah.
Which,
No. Yeah.
again, I mean, that's more of a problem with netcode, and I feel it probably more because I'm Hawaii, so I kind of get the
Yeah.
short end of the stick. And hopefully, games like Guilty Gear Strive will help in the future, but that's neither here nor there, right? Just my own personal frustrations with the way things are. But hopefully things will get better in the future. I think yesterday they were discussing the idea of maybe having servers, right? Because right now the sort of policies use P2P because it's cheapest, and if there's
Mhm.
actual servers too, that should help to at least improve the quality, and maybe at the very least stop some cheaters from cheating, which has been another very big problem as of late. So
Mhm.
And there ends my rant for now. So yeah, I think with all that out of the way, we can start to actually discuss tournaments and how to sort of build up your own community. So for your own experience, when did you actually start getting into the competitive scene of Tekken?
So I started getting back into the competitive scene probably right before Corona hit last year. I was trying to get more into what do you call it? Trying to get more into my local scene, but the closest and like the best thing for my local scene was actually what do you call it? So I live in Dallas, right? The closest city that actually had something going on constantly was in Arlington. They have like this esports arena built there too. Excuse me. And I was trying to get back over to there, but I didn't have proper school was in the way. I was working at the time, and that was like a 40, sometimes like an hour drive just to go play in locals. I'm like, all right, well, I want to try to figure something out. Then coronavirus hit, I was like, oh shit, now I can't attend locals at all. So I ended up creating my own thing because one, I wanted to give something back to the community that's helped me out in the sense of like I have like all the knowledge that I've learned from the community and everything. And that's how I ended up creating my own online league. I was working with a previous league beforehand, and there were some what do you call it? Just some. We had some differences on like how things should be ran. I was like, all right, I'm gonna go create my own thing. So I ended up creating my own thing. I ended up streamlining it, and ended up just doing everything on PC because I switched to Tekken to PC back in March, and PC Tekken is honestly the way to go. Even when there are hackers and cheaters on there, it's still the way to go. Just the game just feels so much smoother, easier to run. I mean, there's mods. You can do a lot of cool stuff on there too. And then moving forward, that's how I ended up creating my tourney league. I ended up creating it, and yeah, that's what it's been ever since.
Yeah, I mean, definitely with mods too, right? You can get so many amazing things. Like I just recently I saw a mod that was Gigas, except it was the coronavirus with like toilet paper arms. It's just like that's
Yeah,
just
there's a lot of silly mods, man. It's great.
yeah. Unfortunately, it does make the game a bit unstable, and it's already unstable as it is on PC, right? You know, it just
Mhm.
crashes randomly. But I do
Yeah.
definitely agree it's a way to go, especially since in terms of LAN players, right? The actual amount of LAN players tends to be the highest on PC, according to the
Oh
stats
yeah.
yesterday. So you know, at the very least, you're sort of sacrificing that quote unquote stability for actual network stability, which, you know, in a lot of places where you're on the mainland, right, it's going to definitely make a difference. When you're in Hawaii, maybe not so much, but, you know, it's certainly better than the other options that you have, right,
Oh
especially
yeah.
with like
No,
older
wait,
games.
definitely. Because like when I switched from what do you call it? When I switched from console, I was playing on PS4 to PC. And then I went back to console. A lot of my inputs were being eaten by the game, like quite literally. It felt like I was playing the game at a slower frame, like slower frame per second compared to what it was on PC, and it just made so much sense. Like I would do Gigas' new combo 2-1 into Golem, right? And for some reason, Golem wouldn't register when I was on console. Sometimes it happens on PC too, but it would be more of a problem on console. I'm like, all right, like this blows. I'm not trying to like deal with this BS anymore. Game is just uglier to look at, unfortunately, too. However, at the end of the day, which is the upsetting thing, you do get more games faster on console just because of the fact of like how many people play, regardless if it's Wi-Fi or lined. Um, and until Tekken ends up creating that transition where everything's going to be on PC instead of console, then unfortunately console is going to be the way to go until then. Just because the fact like there's you saw people on PC. It was a huge debacle like earlier this year about the frame data interlay and all that stuff.
Right.
That can be an issue. I understand why like they would take that away or like auto blocking lows. Oh my god, there's so much shit happened this past year, dude. But
Yeah.
yeah,
You know, the Tekken scene has definitely been on fire in more than one ways. both
Yeah,
good and
definitely.
bad. So
Hmm.
I've definitely seen a lot of this stuff happening on Twitter too, which again, there's definitely the good moments to celebrate, but there's also definitely the other not so good moments where it's just like, wow, there's so many hackers at high levels, and all these people are getting exposed, and Michael Murray kind of isn't doing too much about it, huh?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so if you're listening to this, Michael Murray, please do something about the hackers right now. At least one, get rid of OK Saving Banks at the very least. You could give us that much.
Yeah, most definitely.
Right. So, of course, then I, I guess part of the thing too. I guess before I go on to the next question is
Hmm.
part of the problem too is that with Japan, console I think is definitely the much bigger platform. There's a lot of PC support happening too, and it helps to have players like Yu who play on PC a lot and stream, so people can actually see the results. Of people coming in
Hmm.
being like, hey, PC is actually kind of cool. But I feel like it's not really going to go to all PC. If anything, it's probably going to go to crossplay, which does present its own problems, but hopefully that will become a thing, right? Just as
Doesn't
side note.
I think one fighting game does that already, right? Is it Mortal Kombat that does crossplay? Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not
Uh,
too sure.
does it? Maybe one of the because I know there's two people in here from the Hawaii scene who are a bit more well versed with fighting games than I am. I wonder if they'll be able to confirm, or if anyone else in chat could confirm.
I
But
mean, I
I'm
can understand why they wouldn't do it, just because of the fact like it is still like a hassle. I mean, fighting games in general, like to do anything network wise is a hassle. So I understand why they're like, or like you were saying with peer to peer versus doing actual servers. That's going to be an interesting thing if any like fighting game ever does that. But peer to peer is usually a little. I mean, here's another thing I should probably add on. Developers now more than ever should understand that playing online is actually viable, especially now more than ever because of coronavirus. And online play should be looked at a little bit more. It shouldn't just be like a second, like what do you call it, an afterthought. Now people are like obviously offline is going to be superior no matter what, but in a situation like this, if it ever happens again, and knowing human, like just like human history, like something like this can happen again, um, it should just be looked at as like just looking at online. I think the fact that I could play with someone, well, I'm in the U.S. and I could play with someone from the U.K. It's a beautiful thing. I want to be able to play with my friends who are across the world, and developing netcode like that is fantastic. And if they do end up getting, if this is any developer at least, if they do end up getting extra cash to kind of implement put the project more towards that, be an interesting thing for fighting games in the future.
yeah, and
That way, like if someone's in New York and they're trying to play with someone like from Hawaii, like you, it's a possible thing.
right, and it won't because even with the way it is now, I've played Chenzo after season 4 came out, and it's been jittery, of course, right? It's not
Mhm.
perfect, but it's definitely a lot better. So steps are being taken in the right direction too. I think part of the thing to note with this development, and I see that you've put one of your emotes in chat. Yeah. Oh wait, Chenzo, I got my eye on you. I got my eye on you. Anyway, so one of the problems is that the development has to have steps not inside the game but also outside the game as well, right? It's not just the game itself that is a problem. Part of the problem is that our current actual information transfer only goes at a certain speed because we use fiber optic, right? In theory, what would
Mhm.
be best is if we could maybe make some sort of glass-like substance, then it should be able to transfer that information probably a lot faster, or some other substance that transfers light faster. And then you have problems like, say for example, and I know this is controversial, and I don't want to call you out because I understand that it's not every Texas connection is built the same, right? Joe Crush's
Yeah. Mhm.
connection is different from Cake's connection, but for some reason, like it seems that Texas has the short end of the stick when it comes to connection too. I don't know what it is. Maybe like more independent service, or maybe it's
Yeah.
like
Uh
the
huh.
networking. I don't know what it is.
Oh,
Like there's a lot of
that's
different
that's
things it
that's
could be.
exactly what it is right there. Like
Yeah.
certain areas, especially my area, certain areas are monopolized where you can only get like one or two internet providers. So there's only two internet providers in my area. But if you go more downtown into Dallas, right, they offer fiber optic. But in my area, they don't offer fiber optic just because like I'm 20 miles away from Dallas, technically speaking. Like, oh, I can't get fiber optic. But if I move like 5 miles closer, I could get fiber. It's dumb. It's a dumb monopolized system, but that's just how it is. Especially up in like North Texas, which is where I'm at. That's just how it is, unfortunately. And it probably is the same thing where Joe Crush is at, because I know he's in San Antonio. He probably has the same issue. So same thing for Wasulu and Trojan. They live like in Denton, so it's a little bit like towards, I would say, the left side of Dallas. It's probably the same issue for them. It's just Texas is, because of the fact that it's so goddamn huge, right? And California, I would say it's a little bit easier. I'm not too sure. I don't live in California, but because of the fact that it's so goddamn huge, Texas at least, how many residents live here, they monopolize certain areas of Texas for certain internet providers, which is the most backwards, like, bullshit thing ever. Right? Don't get me wrong, but what can I do about it? You know, no one can do anything about it, unfortunately. So I have my shit wired all the way. My fucking modem's right next to me and all that stuff. I'm still gonna have jittery connection, unfortunately, because of the fact that I don't have fiber, and they don't offer fiber in my area. You know, it just blows. That's just
Right.
how it is.
Right, but again, that's sort of the problem, right? Different areas
Mm-hmm.
have different situations, and
Yep.
until those
Mm-hmm.
developments happen outside, then you can't necessarily get those perfect situations where it feels like really, playing offline. So
Yeah.
that's part of the
Exactly.
problem too,
Exactly.
right? You can only do so much as a developer anyways, technically, right? You can't say, okay, everyone in the world now has to have this level of connection via, like, a new system of transfer, right? And different areas, of course, will develop slower or faster. There's a lot of different factors, of course, that play into it, but the developers hopefully in the future will do what they can, and I think Steam is
Mm-hmm.
definitely a good resource, as well, because if they can get some of those Valve servers as well, then that's probably a cheaper way to actually be able to create a server system.
Oh yeah, most definitely for sure. I mean, we're like, we're not going backwards. Thankfully, we're heading towards the right direction. It's just taking a while to get there. At the end of the day.
Right, and unfortunately, Japan itself has like a very popular saying, which is roughly translated that Japan is a nation of islands, which is sort of used as
Oh
this
yeah.
idea of, like, Japan tends to be slower with the times, right? And
Mm-hmm.
of course, rapid urbanization hasn't really done Japan any favors either, to be honest. So there's that too. But less of that, and more about talking about the tournament. So you mentioned that you were involved with a different tournament organizer, sort of tournament scene earlier, and helping them organize. What were the first days of you working with them like?
So I was involved with this league called Tekken High Level League. They mainly do tournaments on console, but I think they were trying to spread out to like PC and Xbox. They're a nice group of people. Just had some creative differences with like one person. That's the thing. Like one person can fuck up, can make it or break it, unfortunately. But I was their PC area, and I noticed that like just doing anything on PC is just so much easier. You know, like obviously I have my stream set up, I have the game set up, I may have everything set up, and unfortunately, trying to get audio on the PS4 in streaming is a huge goddamn hassle because of the fact that, so like, you know how like we have Discord chat, right, for PlayStation,
Right.
sorry, for PC, and obviously Xbox has party chat, and same thing for PlayStation. You need to get a separate wire with an Elgato capture card, right, in order to capture the audio of the people who are in the chat. And I'm like, all right, and even if you do get it, it's a 50-50 chance of it actually working or not, which is why I was like, you know what, god damn, this is like the dumbest goddamn thing ever. Plus, like I said, people on PC, that's a little bit more organized. Like, if you have a PC, I just think, like, people who are on PC is going to be a little bit more organized. They have everything right there, you know? Instead of having to use a third-party app to do, like, XYZ thing. Like, 99% of people who are on PC play Tekken, they have a Discord, so it's easier to just, like, boop, 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 get them all in there, have easier access to the internet and all that stuff. And 9 times out of 10, they're also wired. So if I were to do, like, a PS4 tournament, you know how many people are wired or aren't wired on PS4. You know, it's kind of hard to, especially now. It's kind of hard to be like, all right, like I can't let you join. So I ended up just sticking with being the PC head for it. It went well. First tournament went very well. Same thing for the UK tournament. It went very well too. And then eventually, I left, did my own thing, and that's where we're at now. My goal is to try to get like I mainly just do USA and UK. sorry, I say UK, EU, and try to get. I'm trying to get more regions if possible, but you can only stretch your wings so far, especially with Tekken, just because of the NECA. Like,
Right.
even if I was a spectator for a match that's happening, like let's say in the Arabic Peninsula or in Pakistan, I don't know. I haven't tested it out because I in my head I'm already thinking, oh, it's just gonna be like stuttery as shit, so I can't really do that, unfortunately. But luckily, the communities that I have reached out to, like North America, some South American players too, and then EU, they're all very nice. They're like super willing to help me out, and the tournament scene has been good because of that. Like a huge shout out to the EU community. I fucking love those guys. They're hilarious. One, they're hilarious, and two, like they're always a hey. They're always extremely thankful. Not to say the North American guys aren't either. Like, but the EU guys, I wasn't expecting it to be that nice. Is what I'm trying to say. It's like, oh shit, you know, it's really nice to have that. So it's good to feel like the tournaments that or the things that I am doing, it is actually somewhat successful, and it's good to see that people are appreciative of it. It's a heartwarming feeling for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that's one thing I've very much found nice about the Tekken community that I couldn't really find with a lot of the other communities I've tried to get into for fighting games. It's that sort of feeling of warmness and friendliness towards a lot of other players, and the fact that I feel like I feel very intimidated with a lot of other scenes, like the Mortal Kombat scene and whatnot. And because I sort of got my foot into the Tekken scene now, it also just feels a lot easier to sort of go to other scenes now and feel less intimidated, especially since I know, Tekken is sort of my base, right? I'm not the best at Tekken, of course. I'm like, an orange Gigas with a dream, but at the same time, I've still got something going for me, right?
Yeah, yeah, and that's another thing to add on to like why I created these tournaments. Um, Usually, like a lot of people don't really get a lot of they don't have a lot of time into like tournaments. Like they've never been in a tournament. And I wanted to create an environment where anyone can join. It doesn't matter how good or like how bad you are. You can still get that experience of what it's like to be in a tournament. Because that's the thing, like the true test of like how good you are, I would say as a Tekken player, just as a player in general, is like try to put yourself in a tournament and then see how well you do. Like I would consider myself as an okay player, but when I play in tournaments, I fucking suck. Because of the fact of like you're gonna get humbled really quickly. Because there's the pressure on the line. Like I get nervous as shit. So there's a pressure on the line. There's like, oh shit, like it's just as best of two, and then after that, then like you get sent to losers. Like, oh shit, it's gonna happen again, and then best of threes doesn't happen until you go all the way up to winners. That's like grand finals because obviously there needs to be a loser. So then I don't know, and then also, so I wanted to create an environment where people. It doesn't matter where they're from. Like it could be their first time playing. They have a place to go to check it out because like you check out like ICFC, you check out Wednesday night fights and all those other tournaments. They're kind of intimidating. There are a fuck ton of people who join. So I would like to like eventually. This is something I want to do. Is create one tournament big enough to have like a smaller league, a big league, or like a intermediate, and then like the big league type of thing. That way, that way people who are getting into the scene, they're exposed to what the different types of like levels are, and then they can work to getting better. Like you see like guys, like I would say Joe Crusher is a fantastic example. He was playing in some of my tournaments. Now you see how he's been doing in ICFC now. He's like He's like always top 7 no matter what. Like that guy is fantastically strong. He was already a pretty good player to begin with, but it's awesome to see a guy like that, right, who's already pretty good, go from fighting some of the best players in North America and being able to stick with them and just hang with them too. That's something I want to like be able to do. Kind of create like in this case like a small little dojo or like a small little like practicing and let the guys grow from there. And I'm about to finish my statement. Sorry, but
No,
that's what I'm saying.
absolutely.
Like you need to be. I would say if you want to get better in Tekken, obviously play some online because online is a good little indication like how far you can go. Not everything on online is going to be make or break it, but it's a good indication of how far you go. See where you plateau at. Try to get better. Play against people who will mix your shit up so many different ways because the only way you're going to get better is if you play against a guy or girl, whoever. If you play against an opponent that is stronger than you, then you learn because we're creature of habits. You learn, you understand what you need to do, understand when you really need to sidestep, what move does this, and then understand your character's weaknesses and its strengths. Like I have the worst time with Josie. I fucking hate Josie. Playing Josie as Giga against like being playing Gigas against Josie is usually a nightmare because she has so much pressure and her mix-ups. And I have to. I'm like, all right, when can I punish? Because that's another thing. It's like, when can I punish? When can I do this? But I'm playing against a couple more Josies, and I'm starting to understand. All right, this is what I need to do now because I'm playing against a guy who's better than me, and I understand where my weaknesses fall and where my strengths are at when dealing with a character like that. So it's not just going to be a no round brown anymore. I'm actually going to be able to contest it. That's what you want to do if you want to get better. And then also adding on to some tournament play where you get that you see so many weird matchups you will never see. And it's a fantastic thing. That's why I feel like people need to be more involved in tournaments, and that's why I wanted to create this tournament scene to allow people to see that. And dude, seeing North America play compared to EU, it's always so different. People playing EU play so much different from North America. It's just that's another thing. Sorry, I'm about to finish this. I promise.
No, don't worry about it.
Watch other scenes play. You would see the complete different, like they're completely different play style, like how EU plays, how Asia plays, how South America plays, Africa too. Like they all play differently, and it's a beautiful thing to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been spending a lot of time actually watching other ICFCs, and it's just again amazing to see how many different things happen in the minds of those players, and like even I think was one of them that just really surprised me. I forget who it was that was playing Leo. I think was it last week when they were showing the ICFC clip in the actual ICFC tournament for NA, but they just went for like that one low kick on Leo after like the stats. I'm just like, wow, how did that happen?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and it's just, and I think this is another thing too about tournaments, right? And I feel better honestly in tournaments because tournaments have so many other factors built in, but at the same time, I feel like they can play to my advantage, right? So in ranked, say for example, I can only play one character, so I can't switch it, in the middle or whatever, and my opponent can't do the same either. I can't prep for that specific match or, sort of be like, all right, so this is a roster. This is what I need to sort of prepare for, right? I know what my weaknesses are in terms of characters, but even with that, there's a lot of other factors too. And even with players who I have like recurring matches with, I know how to prepare for their connection as well. So I prepare differently for, say, for example, Tasty Steve than I do with maybe a different other player, like Shisuda, who's like I think Michigan, and because the connection is different, right? Their character is different. There's so many different factors that I can play into, or even with a bad matchup like Josie, right? I lose the first match like no round round on Gigas, and I'm like, well, I have a lay, so why don't I bring out the lay? And then I just went against them. It's like 3-1, and then after that 1-3 with the lay, of course, it's gonna happen. And if they're a Fujin Josie, and I'm like, you know, vanquish your Gigas, but it gives you so many different opportunities to try out different
Mm-hmm.
things, and it honestly gives you more room to prepare, and maybe that's why I feel less nervous. It's because since I happen to be more on the brain player side, I can sort of think to myself, yeah, these are all the factors that I'm going to have to take into account, but I can in a way create this much more organized patterning in my head based off of what I think is going to happen. And because I have that sort of affordance, I think it feels a lot better for me to play in tournaments. Well, that and also, I'm mostly playing against people who are higher than me anyway. So if I get my ass kicked, it's like, well, okay, yeah, I probably deserve that anyways.
It's always good knowledge, regardless. At the end of the day, man, it's always good knowledge.
Yeah, and even with lower ranked players, like you have like the, of course, the meme of the Tekken first Dan Omega, but it's true, right? You can't judge anyone based
Yeah.
purely off of rank. I
Yeah.
almost won against Tasty Steve and Rip at one point or another, and
Mm.
I'm definitely an orange rank player. My punishes aren't up there, but it's the fact that it allows for these sort of interactions to happen, right? And this is why Evo I think was one of the best tournaments. It's because someone who comes out of nowhere where no one knows them, right? Like Arslan Ash can just go and just sweep everyone, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
So yeah, I don't know. I think tournaments are just a very beautiful thing, and also creating a space too where you can create a dojo as well. I think it definitely helps people to get better. It's the idea of you know making iron stronger by hitting it against iron. You
Mhm.
actually forge a blade by hitting it with a hammer, right? You are denting it, of course, right? But you are
Mhm.
making it so it's structurally stronger in the end.
Yeah. Mhm.
So, when it comes to a tournament, I'm sure you're probably not the only person that actually does a lot of the organizing, right? There's probably a few different shared roles. So if you could maybe give us a look into how you organize tournaments, what sort of people you need to recruit for that.
So as far as the tournament goes, I would say you don't need like a huge staff. Although a bigger staff is nice, but you could have up to like 3 to 5 people. So you would at least want 2 people to. You could have a solo commentator. I solo commentate sometimes. It is nice to have a secondary voice. Don't get me wrong, but you want at least 2 people designated for commentating. That way, obviously, it's just not just people just watching 2 guys play without like any actual. Because commentating's fun. Then also to add on to that, you want one person moderating the chat on Twitch because that's where 9 times out of 10 things are going to be streamed. You want one guy who, and this is how I do it on PC. I recommend, and this is how I figured out how like ICFC and WNF actually did it. They have one guy who's in the lobby, and that guy who's in the lobby, right, who sends out the invites to whoever, they're streaming it on Discord. Usually, you would want to use Discord Nitro because that allows you 1080p. They do that, and then the actual guys who are streaming it onto their channel. Well, I'm going to use ICSC as another example, like Rip. He streams it off of that, and then you watch from that. That way, you have less. Doesn't matter how beefy your PC is. Tekken crashes all the time. So that way, if it does crash, it doesn't like because this happened to me sometimes, even on stream. That way, if it does crash, you don't have that weird, awkward like, oh shit, what do I do? Like trying to figure out what to do. You at least have the stream still running, and then if they do crash, you could just cut off, let the commentators talk, and then go back to watching the stream whenever the guy who is in the lobby streaming it on Discord is ready to go back to you. So that's why I'm saying like 3 to 5 people. The other extra guy can be moderating like, hey, you're going to be up next against this person on stream, or like, hey, what's your score? I'll put it into like challenge or um, Discord or Smash.gg. So you want at least 5 people, I would say. Normally, what I usually do is I have my friend Redleaf. He is the guy who streams it on Discord, and then I watch it, and then me and him commentate. And then I usually have like an extra guy like Double Dab. He ends up doing the moderating every now and then. Sometimes I could do the moderating because I just have a second monitor, so it's no big deal. But yeah, like I said, you don't need that many people. And even then, you could do this shit solo. I do this. I sometimes do all this shit solo on EU, for the European times because I understand like the guys who I'm working with. Unfortunately, I can't pay them. Like this is like something that we're just doing for fun. I don't have like I don't pay them. And I don't think I don't think they really even care to. But eventually, if I were to like make it as big as like Rip it has like with WNF and ICFC, obviously there would be payment and all that stuff. But you would you could do it solo. You could honestly do it solo. It might take a little bit, and that's what I was doing in the beginning when I was starting this stuff. I had my what do you call it? I had Tekken running. I had my stream. I was moderating, doing all this shit at the same time. It's humbles yourself, and then you understand. All right, this is me doing this shit online. Being a tournament organizer is not easy, but it can be done, and it can be done solo. All it takes is just you to have a decent rig. That way you could stream, and you could also moderate and do all the extra stuff.
Right. Yeah, I know our Hawaii scene is kind of small, so I'm not exactly sure how the entire process goes here, but it's done by a very small amount of people too. There's definitely like maybe only usually about 3 or 4 faces I know that are actually running a tournament at that time. So sort of interesting
Mhm.
to see how little people it actually can take, but when it gets big, right, it's still a pretty small number compared to the amount of people who are entering, but how
Yeah, yeah,
smoothly it can run with just so little people.
yeah, and like obviously, like I usually average about like 20 to sometimes like the highest I've had was like 30 or 40 participants. When it gets bigger, like when it gets like past like the 40 or 50 mark, it's like, all right, shit, I need more people. Like once you start getting like 100 or like 50 to like 100 plus entries, you're going to need more people for sure. That's just how it is when it comes to like the but I would say as long as your player base is consistent with like 20 to 30, you could solo it. You'll be fine. But once it gets bigger than that, that's when I would say get more people to help you out because it does get hectic. People sometimes might not be listening whenever you are telling them here are the rules of the engagement, and you have to repeat yourself and like shit I'm commentating, and then there's like a dude like, hey, who am I fighting next? I'm like, oh fuck, hold on, I'm commentating, you know. So yeah, eventually I would say once you get to 30 to 40 people, you want some extra people. It just smooths it out, makes it easier. You don't stress yourself out and don't shit the bed.
Right. Yeah, I mean that's definitely the most important part. Try to have it at least look like it's going smoothly. And I know with Trace Complete, for example, right? I don't know how Ed really does it in such high production. It's amazing, but he somehow manages to always like answer those questions in chat with typing, and then like at the same time he's still talking, which it's amazing because I feel like sometimes if I'm typing something in chat while trying to talk, then like I'll just say what I'm typing.
You
in
say
chat.
what you're talking.
It's just like, oh shit, I wasn't supposed to say that.
Completely understand, man. That's happened to me a couple times too.
Yeah, so I mean, it's really just amazing to see, like, again, how well these things can work when executed properly. But again, it's just amazing. Like, again, I don't understand how people can like type and talk at the same time and not just like have like a Freudian slip of some sort, right? If I was like typing
Yeah.
something extremely private to someone else while on stream, if I wasn't actually talking, then that's a different story. But if I'm talking, I feel like I'm gonna like say something about like that private thing, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh crap, I've kind of doxed that person, huh?
Yeah. No, completely understand. Oh, you would want to create like you want to be a likable personality. You don't want to be an asshole. Unless like being an asshole is your thing, that's fine. But you want to be open. You want to be welcoming to your tournament scene. Like you want people to come out to play because they want to be here, not because like they're just doing it just to do it. Obviously. So that's also like the biggest thing. Luckily, I was able to get a decent following on Twitter, and then that allowed me to create my scene, and it's helped out ever since.
Right. Which brings up another question. When you start off, right, how do you really get a following, right? I know in your case, right, you just mentioned that you used your Twitter following to start that gathering of people, but for maybe other tournament organizers, or say for example, maybe if you didn't have that Twitter following as big, or that process from moving out from the Twitter following, how do you get people to come to your tournament?
The biggest thing I did is you want to be involved in the community as much as you can possible. That means going out to bigger player streams. That means just checking out smaller player streams when you're playing Tekken. Like when I was playing Tekken, if I met a guy, when I was playing Tekken on PC and I met a guy and we're just going back and forth on quick play, I would message him like, hey, like you want to join my Discord, and then I'll open up my Discord, and then that guy's not going to be playing in my tournaments because he's interested. So there's that. Being involved like in the Twitch streams, like I said earlier, talking to people, talking to the player who's playing, let them know what's up. Direct messaging people on Twitter, that helps out a lot too. I direct message like a crap ton of people. Be like, hey, you want to join my Discord? Check it out. Cool. This is when I do my tournaments. And then eventually word goes around, hey, there's a guy hosting a tournament on this day. You should come check it out. And Mishima Zaibatsu is also a good place to go to, the Discord. Just drop your tournament info there. And use character Discords. I can't say this enough. I'm involved in like 4 or 5 for the characters that I play. Like King 1, the Brian 1. I played Brian for a little bit too. It was Brian 1, Yoshimitsu 1, Gigas 1, obviously, Heihachi. All of them are really nice people. They're going to listen. They have no issues like be like, hey, fuck off. They'll listen to you. And if you're like, hey, I'm hosting this tournament, if you guys are more than welcome to join, just you have to get your voice out there. You have to talk, and you obviously need to know a little bit about Tekken as well. You can't just be some dude who's saying, "Oh, that guy did that." No, you got to know a little bit about Tekken. You got to understand how Tekken works and why this is so hype. Because you have some random bystander walk around, watch a tournament. they don't know shit about Tekken. They probably heard about the game, but you want them to get into the game. Like one thing I think Rip and Tasty Steve and Eris and Markman do fantastically well is if you don't know about Tekken, you want to learn about Tekken because of like how much they hype what just happened in a match. Like I think back to Super Akuma versus Cherry Berry Mango, right? The like Cherry Berry Mango messed up once. One small hiccup, and Super Akuma just brought that HP down instantly with that death combo.
Yeah.
I would get just you want people to get hyped about that. So oh shit, like you know how hard that shit is to do. You know, insane that is. Oh, when Lil Majin was jumping over the Repukans, and I forgot who was playing, but he jumped over the Repukans and he ended up like dominating. Oh, I forget who was playing. Oh, like when he was playing against JDCR and he was able to win. You want people to get hyped about that. You want, even if they don't understand what Tekken is, because Tekken is a very complex game. Fighting games in general are complex. Not a lot of people know what 1, 2, 3, 4 means. That's another thing. Not a lot of people know like notation still. They could be playing for like 10, 5 years, whatever. They still don't know what notations are. But you want people. It doesn't matter. You still want people to like get into it and understand the game, and you want to be exciting. So obviously, be exciting, be approachable. Get into the community. It might be a grind, but get into the community because no one's going to tell you to fuck off unless you're just a total asshole. I've never had a bad interaction with the community, I would say. All my interactions with the community and all the members that I've been with have been luckily pretty good because they're all open. Because at the end of the day, everyone just wants to play. They just want to play. They just want to fight. Say good games or whatever. Talk to the people. It is what it is at the end of the day. That's how I built mine. I built it from somewhat of a small build-up, and I have to say huge shout out to Jennifer's on PC, because if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't have like any of this shit at all. I wouldn't have met you. I wouldn't have met a lot of people in the PC community if it wasn't for her. Just because I did the small thing of, let me look up some open lobbies.
Yeah.
I joined her lobby. That's the only reason why. That's another thing. Join open lobbies. Don't be afraid. I mean, you might meet some really wonderful people. And again, shout out to Jenny Fears, because if it wasn't for me joining her open lobby, I wouldn't have met like people like Depato or Redleaf or Mondo Savage, like some awesome, wonderful, great people. Expecto, like great people that actually ended up becoming some really good friends of mine in the Tekken community. And from that, I was able to branch off. Just keep at it. That's all it is.
Speaking of Mando Savage, actually, I believe, it's interesting too how this sort of network goes, because you met Mando Savage through like lobbies, and some people meet Mando Savage in other ways, right? But it's like sort of this like really really weird like interwoven web, right? And even Chenzo here, right? I believe Mando Savage is the person who initially taught you a lot of things about King, if I do remember correctly. So yeah, it's like there's so many different like links to other people, and like sometimes you don't even know there's that link. And then, all of a sudden you talk to you meet this one person, and then that one person, that name comes up in a different conversation. All of a sudden you have like a different link for like a different person, right? It's such a very interestingly like complex but interconnected web of just.
It's a small world, man. Yeah. It's a small world for sure.
Yeah, and then like 3 days later, all of a sudden, like you're talking to little Majin, like you've been friends for like 5 years, and it's just like wow, I didn't actually think I'd ever have this interaction with this person, like I guess like Joey Fury or Cuddlecore and all that, especially in areas where you're not necessarily from, like say for example in my case, right, since I moderate Chance's channel, I of course see a lot of people come in, right, so like I'm saying hi to like a little Majin really casually, and I never thought that was gonna happen like when I first got into Tekken this fast, right? I thought maybe if I get really good and maybe I go to like Evo or something, then I might be able to have a chance to talk to little Majin. But then now it's just like, oh hey, what up, little Majin? It's glad to see you're back in the chat.
Yeah, like I said, like the best thing to do is number one thing, regardless of everything I said, get involved in the community. The community is here to talk about Tekken, because that's what a community is about, right? They want to talk about the game, no matter what it is. It could be a controversial opinion. It could be like, oh, hey, is this something cool that I found? It doesn't matter. Just talk about the game. People will listen to you, and they will allow you to speak your piece, and you could grow from that. Like you could talk about how cool you think King is, and then you could just like there's so many different ways you could grow. But be involved in the community is number one. Talk to those streamers. Talk to those other players that are there. Um, they're not, like I said, they're not going to be an asshole to you unless they're just inherently known to be an asshole. But just talk to those guys, and they will 100% talk to you back. And as long as you're not an asshole to them, you should be fine.
Yeah, it's the idea of the golden rule. It applies pretty much everywhere. You treat others the way you expect to be treated. If others treat you
Most
badly,
definitely.
then, do you want to treat them nicely? No. I mean, it takes great skill and patience and a lot of like HR experience to be able to like sit down with an asshole in the same room and just, talk it out with them and try to come to an understanding at the very least. That's very hard for most people because you don't want to be in the same room as someone who just is going to be inherently, a dick to you, but yeah, I mean, if as long as you follow that one basic rule, then you can't really go wrong. Most people will at least let you say your opinion, even if they don't agree, if they think you're entirely wrong and you're crazy for thinking that. At the very least, they'll respect you for at least trying to be a decent human being.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
On that topic of commentators, we mentioned Markman, Eris, the classic combo as Tasty Steve, Rip. What do you think really makes like for a good commentator or good commentators, right? Because there's definitely a difference between having only one commentator and having multiple, and with the sort of scene that you're actually commentating for, right? And is there maybe with more commentators like a sort of balance or energy or relationship sort of thing that you look for when you try to find someone in your mind maybe to commentate, because for your own personal experience I think you only really have like maybe two or three at most commentating, right?
I would say one thing you need to understand is that you need to be ready to have like just a conversation, right? That, and then you you need to have a somewhat basic understanding of the game. Like I obviously don't know every single notation like of every move in the game, right? But have some basic understanding of the game. Like, oh, that's a 1-1-2. Oh, that's a 2-1, whatever. But not just that, but also that's like small bare bones stuff. Also, be in love with the game. You if you see those other guys when those big names that we just talked about when they commentate, they're in love with the game. You want to talk about the game and commentate like you're high on something. Like, oh my god, like did you see that? Like you remember whenever Fakaron was being released, when you saw Steve like rip fucking rips,
Yeah.
arm essentially. You want to be so hyped and like so infatuated with the game because I love Tekken. Like I said, I love Tekken. I don't just play the game because I don't just play the game just to play the game. I play the game because I love it. And because of the fact that I love it, I want to talk about it. I want to geek out about it. And you want to have someone who understands that commentating is you want that same energy. Yeah, you're gonna have like your low points. But that's where second commentator's for. You talk, you just have a decent back and forth. But you want to talk. You want to be with someone who loves the game as much as you do, and is able to express it by just going hype. Like whenever I like do my tournaments, I lose my shit when I see some of these things. Like these are things that I would never like have seen before, and it's just insane to see it's happening within a tournament. Whenever pressure's on the line, whenever things are like, oh shit, it's like a 1 HP in a dream. Like, oh shit, it's a bracket reset. You need to be hyped about these things, and you want to watch the game like like I said, you want to be into the game like you're completely in love with it. And if you're not, then it doesn't make for good commentating, doesn't make for good content. And like at the end of the day, it will just be boring, Like why would I commentate and why would I talk about a game where I am going to be like bored? Like, oh, that's a down forward too. Wow, look at that launch. Like, no, like, oh shit, he fucking launched that guy from 5,000 miles away. Look how much damage he got. You know what I mean?
Right.
You want to be hyped about it. Like, look at that damage, like the meme. Like, that's a lot of damage. But, like, you get what I'm saying. You want to be that hyped. You want to be that excited. You want to be in love with what's happening. And, yeah, it can be draining. Don't get me wrong. Like, I get drained as fuck. Like, at 3 to 4 hours of just straight commentating, you get tired. You do get tired. So that's where that second person can come in handy. But if you don't have that second person, because sometimes you don't, just, know when to pace yourself. Like I'm gonna bring up one good example. When I was doing my tournament, there's this guy named ISNV, and he was playing this other guy called it was something with the M. I forget his name. but it was a Marduk versus Bear, right? ISMV is the guy playing is the guy playing the bear. Bear has 1 health in a dream. Marduk has full health. Dude gets launched at the wall in Mishima Dojo, the bear, right? He's laying on his back, or yeah, he's laying on his back, and he does like the back move, right? And then they switch sides, and then he does the rage drive where he flips him towards the other way. Dude, you lose your shit because like, holy fuck, that guy just needs one good hit. One good fucking hit, and he's gonna win. But he ends up taking it over. That's what you want to be hyped about. You want to like make sure people who don't even know what the game is about understand why that was cool, why that was super insane. You know, at the end of the day, sports, because this is a sport. At the end of the day, sports is like a universal language. Like we all have like every country has like its own sport, and we understand why things are hype. Even if they don't know the game, millions of people watch football. Even if they don't know what the fuck it's about, they still watch football, and they understand when to get excited about. It's the same. It's the same concept when it comes to, um, commentating a video game in this case.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think another thing to note too is that that energy of loving the game and that passion can always come at different levels too, right? There are some commentators like Tasty Steve who just yell and are very physical, right? They like just very, very well, I guess what's the word? Verbal or physically, they will speak their
He
words
has lots of
physically,
body
right?
language. He has lots
Yeah.
of good body language.
But then you have a lot of other commentators on the other end of the spectrum where they seem like to be a lot more on the mellow side, but you can tell that they're still passionate. And there's like, of course, those like really, really hype moments. And instead of like getting like the Tasty Steve, like, jittering all over the place, like, looks like they're doing like the Mishima wave dash, honestly, with just like how much movement they're doing. Like, you have those guys that are just like, they reserve their oh my gods. But when you hear the oh my god, you know it was something good, right?
Yeah, exactly. You could be like watching something, you turn around, oh what? What just happened? Yeah, it's like that. You don't want to miss it, you know?
Yeah, and I think there's definitely also space for different types of commentators too, right? I think and this is my own personal philosophy, and I don't know if you agree with this, but it's definitely good to have like the person who's more of the hype beast, right? So that would be like
Oh
Tasty
yeah.
Steve
Uh-huh.
versus like having the more analytic type. I'm trying to think of an example because Rip I feel like is somewhat more analytic, but still more in like the hype train. I guess the best example I can think of, and again I keep on going back to Chenzo, but he's very like he's a much more like reserved but very analytic type commentator when he commentates, right? So he'll be very, very, very like play by play. We're gonna cut this down and sort of be like, yeah, so this thing happened here, but you can definitely still feel that passion. You can still feel the excitement when it happens.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And sort of finding that, good chemistry, I think, with a lot of different players. Like, if you have a more reserved player, you don't want them to be overshadowed by like an extremely hyped player, because oftentimes they will take over, with just like their physicality and with like, the level that they're playing at, right? So it's about, I think, personally, I think it's just, finding good chemistry too, right? And especially
Mm-hmm.
since sometimes you'll get instances where people might have more of a stronger relationship than others, and then, some person will just maybe feel a little bit out of the loop, like not entirely third wheel, but sort of like they don't get as much of a chance because you have two people already like friends with each other and someone who's kind of friends, but like, maybe feels a little shoehorned in because of that, right?
No, yeah, I think a good example is Eris and what do you call it? Markman. Like Markman's a little bit reserved, and like Eris is. I remember the one quote. He was like, "Oh my god, I can feel it in my loins."
I mean, Aris is just Aris. That's part of the beauty of his commentary, right?
Exactly. No, but that's exactly what I mean. You know, that's exactly what I mean when it comes to like the what exactly what you're saying, the dichotomy. You want the dichotomy of both. It's good to have both.
Yeah, and thank you for joining, us, bunnies. Yeah, right now we are doing an interview on how to build a, Tekken tournament from the ground up. So yeah, it's yeah, I mean, there's just a lot of really good moments with commentating, right? And sort of, again, finding that person in your area that can fit those sort of needs. And then finding, maybe a good pair or so, figuring out schedules. Because part of the problem is that if you want to have like a weekly, and this is something that our local scene has actually kind of hit a problem with, right? It's the fact that with our local scene, we don't have anyone to commentate right now. And that's just because of a scheduling thing. Before we had
Mm-hmm.
one person who would commentate a lot. And I think before that, I know someone in my chat took over for a little bit to commentate for I think 12 weeks, was it, something like that. And it's just because there is like that sort of scheduling problem, and I do want to commentate if and at least keep it alive. But the problem is I personally don't think I have all the know-hows to do that. Unfortunately, I'm not like as well versed as I would like to be on like those hype moments and stuff. And I feel like that comes with the experience of playing the game, right? So that's part of the problem too. It's just time is a resource that everyone is fighting for, and if you don't have people who can fill in that time slot, then it's sort of unfortunate, but sort of ends up being like that. And then if you don't have the skill, then you sort of get that problem where it's just like, well, what is there really to do, right? But
No, yeah. I think another thing I want to add on, because you made a good point about time. Know yourself, obviously, at the end of the day, and know the people around you when it comes to like timing things up. Because whenever you do these tournaments, you have to understand. All right, can I deal with doing a weekly? Can I deal with doing a bi-weekly? Maybe just like once a month. Because there are people who do like once a month tournaments, and like they're usually big because of the fact like, oh, it's once a month or like every 2 weeks. So know yourself, obviously. Know the people who are going to be working with you as well. Obviously, work around that, and then time zones. You have to forget that. Like, I'm in Central, so it's not just my time that I have to worry about. I have to worry about East and West Coast. So I have guys who are 2 hours behind me. I have guys who are an hour ahead of me, and then so North America, you have to find that sweet spot. You have to find that sweet spot of like, okay, when should we set up the tournaments? And if I do it like, so if I do 8 Central, right? All right, so that's only going to be 9 o'clock for the guys on the East Coast, but on the guys for the West Coast, it's going to be like 2 hours behind. It's going to be like 6. So like you have to find a happy medium, because if I do 9 Central my time, that might be a little bit too late for those guys over there. So you have to find a happy medium as to like when to do your tournaments. And then also, if you do end up doing tournaments for different regions that are outside of your regions, like let's say, for example, I also do EU tournaments. Also understand what your time zones are going to be there. So majority of EU guys are going to be 6 to 8 hours ahead, depending on where you live. For me, that's usually the case. So you have to pick a day that's easy on you. Like for me, I usually do like Saturdays at like 2 p.m. Hopefully I get done by around like 5, so I have like free time to do whatever I want like on a Saturday night. But you need to understand because of that, I usually do either EU tourneys by myself. So know your demographic, know your time zones, obviously, know the people you work with and their schedules, and then one last thing I'd also like to add on: create a Steam group. That's also pretty helpful as well when you're doing tourneys on PC. Just because of the fact, like, everyone's in that Steam group. You don't even have to add them as friends. They just have to be in the same group. They could and join you up like that. It's pretty easy. But once you get all those things together, you should be okay. Things are a little bit easier now in the sense of like, oh, I know this guy's using Wi-Fi versus a wired connection now, so that's a little bit easier to kind of, do the rules. As far as rules go, I'm doing a lot of like adding on to the more trending stuff. Figure out what rules work for you. I stick with Tekken World Tour rules because that's usually what a lot of other tournaments do whenever they do create tourneys. It's a lot of other scenes do. Stick with the professional rules. If they don't understand it, feel free to tell them what it is. Obviously, you cannot you can't moderate every single match because of the fact that not every single match is going to be on stream, so you don't know if someone's doing this or this, but you have to be a good middleman. You have to be a good conflict. You have to be a good person who's able to do a conflict, and that. Luckily, I haven't had issues with like, hey, this guy chose this and this, and because usually it ends up finishing itself. But that's another thing. Like I said, with online tournaments versus a local tournament. Obviously, with the local tournament, if you're a TO, you're walking around, make sure everyone's good. You can be like, hey, you can't do that. But on the online tournament, it's like, oh shit, like, I don't know if this guy's lying or not. I want to trust him, but I can't because I wasn't there, you know? So don't let people, another thing, don't let fucking people push you around. You have to be strict. One thing that ended up being a problem for me like 2 or 3 times was people were late. People were really fucking late. And since it's online tournaments and sometimes in local tournaments too, they will join another tournament. Like, I'm going to use an example. My friend Redleaf said he goes to WNF, and he had a dude who was doing a Tekken tournament and a Fighter Z tournament at the same time, and he would be like in winners finals in Fighter Z, but he'd also be like he's also in like winners finals in Tekken. So like he's doing his Fighter Z tournament, his Tekken tournament. Have certain deadlines. Be like, hey, you have like 10 minutes to do this, or like communicate to the TO, because the TOs will somewhat be able to work with you. But if you're like 20 to 30 minutes late, then obviously you're out, bro. Like I don't care if you paid. Like there is a timeline set for this. Obviously with online tournaments, that's another thing. Don't make people pay for your tournament unless it goes towards a pool. Usually make it free, but just make sure that one, you don't get pushed around, and two, you have certain guidelines in play. I had a guy who was in finals on one thing, but he was also in finals on the other thing. Just communicate with the guys. That's pretty much it. I have no beef with them whatsoever. But just communicate is all. As long as you communicate with the TO, especially if it's online, because 9 times out of 10, it's like it could be a one-man thing. I'm usually the person who's running the show anyways. Just communicate to them. As long as you communicate to the TO, you should be fine. But as a TO, don't let people push you around. You have rules set for a reason. Just some guy shows up 20 minutes late, I'm not going to rewind the tournament for you, bro. Like Tekken was an hour ago, and the tournament is already starting. Move on from there.
Yeah, and it's important with these to keep it real, but don't keep it personal, right? You don't call them out for being X, Y, Z thing. It's just like, yeah, these are the rules, and I have to follow them. There is a little wiggle space, but you are well past that wiggle space, so I can't make the exception, because if I do, then I have to do that for everyone, right? And then it gets ridiculous.
Exactly. 100%.
And this brings up a good point, actually, because I know a lot of tournaments like Trace Complete or ShyTech or ICFC, a lot of bigger name tournaments will use Matcherino. I'm not sure what you use for raising for the pool, or how pools are really actually created for like smaller tournaments, but if you could walk us through that sort of process, and maybe how Matcherino works, how do you actually get to the point where you can start getting those coupons? Is it just something that happens right off the bat, etc.?
So with Matcherino, it's usually the most common. You usually won't get verified or like a part of that. It's like it's like a membership thing or whatever. It's a program. Sorry, you won't get part of like the sponsored program until you have a decent amount of tournaments already hosted. Like I would say at least a month or two. So from the beginning, for like the first month or two, honestly, a little bit longer, I was self-funding those tournaments, and it wasn't too bad. It was like 20. It'll be like first place was like $20, second place was 10, fifth place was 30. Some small money payouts. That way, it would like incentivize people to play. I'll admit, the EU, bro. Oh, when I was doing it for EU, that shit burned a hole in my wallet, because the EU dollars is higher than the US dollars, so that transfer rate, it wasn't fun, bro.
Yeah,
it was like 40, yeah, it was like $40 to $50, like
yeah.
But once you get to that comfortable place after because Matcherino wants you to have like a decent amount of time already of like doing these tournaments, and then they'll be interested in sponsoring you. They go through the registration process. You have an interview. They talk to you. All right, cool. You seem like a good candidate. You're gonna have a second interview. You have that second interview. It takes about like 2 weeks. You have that second interview once they process all your stuff and go through all your things. Make sure you're not like a troublemaker or anything. They look at like your Twitter and like your Twitch and all that stuff. Once that's all out the way, you go through the second interview, and then they sponsor you. You don't actually become sponsored until like I think a week later, and then they send you a link to the sponsorship program. Now, the way Matcherino works is it's a pot, so it's a crowdfunding pot essentially, right? So you have like certain goals. You create a page, or like you put up the link, like, hey guys, here's my Matcherino pot. You usually when you start off like low, especially where I'm at, you could put like $10 or $20 into the pot first. That way you at least have something. And then following past that, you'll be like, all right, guys, like here's what you need to do. Go to the Matcherino page and then check it out. And then Matcherino, there's like certain sponsor things on the side, on the right hand side of the page, and they'll be like, oh, if you follow this page, it adds like $1 to the pot just for following that page. Or like if you if you go check out Matcherino, it's like 50 cents to the pot. If you go check out G Fuel, it's $1 to the pot, and those things adds up. So the way Matcherino works is that as long as you have people who are interested in your tournament and they want to go check it out, you usually want to do like a stretch goal for like about a day or two, or sorry, about like a week or two, and then that's why when you see ICSC like, oh, we reached our stretch goals because we had $80 reached. Now we're going to give away this free headset for the sponsorship that we had. Eventually, you would do that once you get bigger. So like they have, how like they usually do Astro. Like Astro is like the biggest thing, especially with like UIU. They're like, okay, we reached like $80. That was our stretch goal. Cool. Now we're gonna give away an Astro headset to one random lucky person. That's usually how it works once you get to the bigger parts. But for smaller people, I would recommend putting in like X amount of money. You don't even have to put the minimum you have to put in. I think is $2, but you just put like $5 or $10 into the pot. Have everyone else check it out, and then the cool thing about Matcherino, which is nice, is you could either just do winner takes all, or you could set up like how it usually is for a tournament, the percentage. So first place is usually 60%, second place is 30%, and then first is 10%. So obviously it all goes up to like 100%. So that's usually the thing, like how they usually do it. Some people do 70, 20, 10. Just all depends. But the usual average is first place gets 60%, second place gets 30%, third place gets 10%, and then let's say I had like $65, right? So 60% goes to first place, and then second place, et cetera, and then that's all held in like a PayPal account. Usually, that's how Matcherino works. But again, you won't really get Matcherino stuff initiated until like you have at least a good month or two of TO experience, like your thing going on. They'll check out your Discord to make sure like it's active and that like you have your tournaments going on, and then be all right, cool, looks good to me. We'll set you up. But yeah, that's pretty much it. It's a painless process. The only issue is that like trying to get people to do the Matcherino thing is obviously like the biggest hurdle. But yeah, that's pretty much it. It's a nice program, and I would suggest getting on it as soon as you can possible. One thing I kind of do regret doing is that I made money. I did give out prizes really early on. Try to stick to no prizes for a while, but if you feel like your people aren't coming in for the tournaments, right? It's okay to put out an incentive. Just don't be like me and do EU tournaments and be like, oh shit, I have to give out like $40 to $50 because of exchange rates.
Right.
It was not fun. I was like, ah, shit. But yeah, it just just a heads up as to how Matcherino works at least.
Right. Well, going back to the topic of time, though, when you organize a tournament, let's say for this week, right, as an example, right, you were planning to do the Power Buff, normally how long would that take, and what would like sort of the schedule look like for that? Do you start like at 1 week before, 2 weeks before, 3 weeks, right, and then how do you like sort of lay out the time? Does it take like overall X amount of hours, and then you do like this much each day for one thing or another?
So before Matcherino, when it was just me funding this stuff, I would do once a week. Or sorry, I would do like the Monday of the week of, right? That makes it easy. People are like, all right, cool. I know it's going to be happening this week. They're not going to forget about it. And it's just boom, easy, pretty straightforward. You go to Challenge or you go to Smash.gg. I highly recommend Challenge just because of the fact that their mobile website's really nice. Smash.gg's mobile website's kind of ass, unfortunately. Even though Smash.gg has like some better things you could do to it. 9 times out of 10, people are going to be using their phone. Like if they're like, yeah, I have a PC, I use my phone. Like it's dumb, but like that's just how it is. Like our phones are just so easy to access. So thankfully, Challenge's website's good for mobile. So I use that. I set up all the stuff, the requirements, whatever, with the time and all that stuff. But if you start getting a Matcherino thing, I would do at least a half a week or 2 weeks, because you want to have ample amount of time to get that pot going for the Matcherino stuff. Like I'm probably going to reschedule the thing for me. That way I have the upcoming Powerbomb tournament. That way we have ample amount of time for the Matcherino pot to actually build. So you want to have ample amount of time to start getting Matcherino. That way people can go, you know, check out the sponsor page, follow whatever they need to, so then we add more bucks to the actual pot. But that's what I would say. A week without Matcherino, you'll be fine. But once you do get sponsored by Matcherino eventually, and not everyone does, but if you end up getting sponsored by it, I would say a week and a half to two. That way you have ample amount of time for people to actually go check it out. Especially if you're a smaller tournament. Like once it become like a bigger tournament like ICFC, I don't think it matters. Like people are gonna go like whatever, cool. But I think another thing is like I don't think a lot of people understand what Matcherino even is. Not a lot, like even if they're into the scene, not a lot of people know. So educate your people, let them know what's going on, and then yeah, that's pretty much it.
All right, yeah, that does sound. Of course, it takes a little work here and there, right? And I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure that again, there's probably like a lot of time spent trying to communicate with everyone and getting everyone on the same page for that day. Sort of making sure everyone's in check, right? And of course, having to like communicate with all the contestants, right? I know with our
Mm-hmm.
local scene here, we would always like have our behind the scenes here, be like, okay, so everyone here's the rules, yada yada yada, right? And then matching people with each other. Right, and I'm sure some of that's probably done beforehand, but again, it definitely seems like a pretty good time investment.
Yeah.
Right, right. Which does bring me to something else I've been wondering too. Do you match people specifically, or more importantly, how do you sort of decide, who faces who gets to go on stream, who doesn't get to go on stream, etc.
Try to get as many new people on stream as possible, unless they specifically don't want to be on stream. Because that's the reason why I'm doing these tournaments. I want like people who want to get more into the Tekken scene, right? To at least get some sort of spotlight to be like, hey, this is a new up and coming player. Or I just listen to like who wants to be on stream, who doesn't want to be on stream. As far as matching people goes, it's all random. I do eventually. I am eventually going to set up a seeded tournament of all the people who have won like their division. So like North America's division, it's going to be all like the top three, right? Who are going to be playing in that. So it's going to be like 12 people or maybe 8 people, top three guys. Whoever's won like the most is going to be first place or whatever, and then it'll be like a big payout. But like eventually, you'll start seeding stuff once you get at least like 3 to 4 tourneys in. Uh, Especially if it's consistent players. That way you have some familiarity and go from there. Or you could just stick with random. It's completely up to how you feel like doing the tournament. Because at the end of the day, you're the boss of the tournament, right? Obviously, so it's all up to you if you want to seed or if you want to stick with just doing random. I personally prefer random, to be honest, just because of the fact that like I love seeing new people come in, right? Because I don't know what the hell they're going to do. I don't know who they play. I don't know like how they play. They could be this dude coming out of left field, like kind of like how Arsenal Nash was for everyone, right? It just mollywop everyone, like some dude that I know, like to like a good example is I have this guy who's won every single one of my EU tournaments. His name's Oracle. He plays a monster Anna. There's this one Eliza player that came out of nowhere. He blew him out of the water, and he never joined afterwards. But like that's what it means. Like yeah, some random dude just comes out of nowhere who will just dominate the competition. So completely again, up to the TO, either random or seed. I personally prefer random. Eventually, if you do want to get into seeding, you have to have some sort of tournaments in your pocket before you can do seeding, though.
Right. Yeah, and I think it depends per tournament too, right? So, for example,
Mm-hmm.
ICFC, you definitely want to have the big names in the stream because that's what most people come to watch. Like they don't want to watch like me versus like some other person that no one knows anything about, right? They want to see like oh Junia or
Mm-hmm.
FDX, Chenzo, Mateo, uh, Tasty Steve, Rip, all those big names that everyone like knows. And even if the other person isn't like a very like highly skilled player per se, like they still come to see this big name playing in there because that's who
Yeah.
everyone knows, right? But like in smaller tournaments, it's definitely a lot more up to the organizer, right? Sometimes you might have bigger names, like maybe in a bigger Texas tournament that might be still on the smaller side. You definitely have someone like Joe Crush, and you want to get them on stream, but it's about balancing that and also having time for other players who maybe aren't as big to have their moments on stream as well, of course.
Yeah, most definitely.
Except for some reason in my locals, I get on. I think I've only been on stream 2 times or 3 times, and for most of those times, I've just been playing the same person, which is kind of a weird coincidence. But yeah,
Grudge match consistently.
I don't know if I'd say it's a grudge. It's just more I'm getting my ass handed to me because he's like probably one of our best players. So yeah,
Yeah, that's
it's
some
been
fun.
brutal, but it is what it is. I can't complain about it. It's always fun playing in our locals. Right. So, I guess this is something that's very important, right? How do you gauge personally that a tournament that you've hosted is, successful? What are your sort of standards for, a successful tournament?
I would say the best thing to see yourself doing a successful tournament where I could gauge is having repeat people coming back. Because once you get people coming back, they're going to be like, "Hey, I go to this tournament pretty often. You should come by, check it out." Word by mouth spreads. So that's what I mean. Like that's where being a friendly face and like being a good host goes a long way because if you have one person who knows another person, like it just trickles down and then it just opens up to so many different fields and opportunities. So that's the best. I'll say that's the best way. And even if you have like a small like group of people that's just like 8 or 6, like you're still hosting a tournament. You're still hosting something for people to be proud of winning at the end of the day. It doesn't matter if you like. I will host a tournament if it has like 8 or 6 people. I don't care. Like as long as it has people to play. That's because at the end of the day, that's why they're there. They're there to play. So if you have repeat people coming back consistently, and then you see some new faces, that's a good thing because that means people like your tournament, they enjoy what you're doing, and they like your layout, and they want to come back to play more and hear you commentate and do more. So that's the best way of seeing it.
Right. And I know we've talked about Challenge, Matcherino, Smash.gg, but are there any other resources you would suggest for someone who's trying to host a tourney? Because of course you have to have, or you should have the overlay, right? It definitely helps. There's also, of course, again, Trace Complete probably the perfect example of what like a really high quality tournament looks like. I don't know how they do their production, but it comes out absolutely amazing, right? You have like double screen setup and it just keeps on going in between like everyone, and it just looks so professional, right? Are there any resources that you would suggest that maybe newer people try to get into to learn how to like maybe do that? Have the display bar and whatnot.
I would say as far as like keep it simple at first, and then grow your stream setup as you get better. Like mine's still pretty straightforward, right? But it would be nice to like have a bit like better. You're gonna need to invest in some sort of stream overlay. Like you're gonna have to pay some sort of money to have like a decent one. I paid for mine and it's worked pretty well. So you want to invest in some sort of stream overlay because you can only go so far. And then along with that, understand why tournaments work, like what a bracket reset means. Uh, Understand tournament language, what winners and losers, what a double elimination tournament is, which is the standard double elimination anyways, and stuff like that. Understand that, and then um, I would suggest going on Reddit about some like tournaments, just like understanding tournament language, what to do in a tournament. I forget what the Reddit is. I think there's a Reddit that I've followed that's about like just hosting T tournaments. It's like I think it's like TOs or something. I still need to double check, but check that out. And then look at other people's overlays, see what they have in common. Like AXL is probably one of my favorite overlays to see. I think it's when I do their weeklies, it's really pretty. And it's just nice, like you're able to see the few people's names. But you definitely are going to have to invest in some sort of stream overlay from like Streamlabs or whatever to at least let it look a little bit good. And I don't think it's going to cost too much. It shouldn't cost more than $10. So because invest in that, and then you should be fine. And again, understand what some tournament language, and you should be okay. It'll take you a long way.
Right. And yeah, of course, definitely having that knowledge too. And I think part of it too is, figuring out as you go along, right, what works and what doesn't. You have to throw things to the wall. It's like anything, right? Art, work, sometimes you don't know what to do, but it's like, we don't perfectly know how to do everything, right? So what we do is that we have to just go by feel, and then if something works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And I think like maybe a perfect example of that is today, you had I think was it a King of the Hill series that Thea Trinidad was hosting? I know that there were a lot of people participating. That it was a PS4 tournament. I know I saw some comments on FDX's channel because I was watching from his perspective earlier about like wow, this tournament's kind of weird, right? Hopefully like because I don't think it's a bad thing. Thea Trinidad is definitely a big name with wrestling, right? I forget what her stage name is. Does she have a stage name? Shoot,
I don't know, but
yeah.
I know what you're talking about though.
Yeah, but like, sort of with that, because it's a good opportunity, right? She is definitely a big name. She gets a lot of viewer traction, and because she gets that right, maybe this tournament this time was weird, but progress as time goes along. Maybe find like someone else to accommodate with her because maybe her commentary. I know a lot of people had criticisms of the commentary, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just maybe having someone else to help you along too, right?
Yeah, yeah, for sure, man, for sure. You definitely want someone who can teach you the ropes about like how the stream set it up and everything. Like, oh, luckily my guy was Double Dab. He helped me like understand like, okay, so this is how your stream overlay works and all that stuff. And then eventually, like, I'll probably end up because the thing that I'm holding back on just because of the fact that I'm not hosting as many tournaments as I would because of the fact of school. I'm super busy this semester. Is I'm holding back on getting one, you want an identity with your tournament league, right? So I'm holding back on like getting a logo and then getting an overlay done. Like if you've seen like the blasted salami, or if you've seen AXL when they do their tournaments, they have their transition and it has a sign. Same thing for ICFC. You want to invest in that just because it looks nice and allows transitions to just pass by smoothly, so it doesn't look weird, it doesn't look janky. But for the like for the first couple of tournaments, especially when you're starting off something new and you don't have a lot of time and money to spend, you're gonna be a little humble. And you're gonna be all right. I gotta stick with this janky layout. Like if you see the beginning of my tournaments, it kind of looked janky, but like they worked at the end of the day. So you
Right.
have something working. It is what it is.
I mean, at the end of the day, the most important thing is the tournament. Everyone comes for the good ass Tekken, and as long as the stream isn't like, crashing or like, playing in like an unseeable like rate, like I don't know, like 480 or whatever, then it will work. As long as people are there for the Tekken, they'll stay for the Tekken, right?
Mhm.
And I guess now that I think about it, I'm sort of interested to take or to get your take on what you think the tournaments will start looking like once Corona is over, right? Because as it is now, we only have online really, and it's a good way to really reach out to a lot of people. But when Corona finishes, right, then of course offline will become an option for local scenes. But do you think online will still continue the way that it has been as of now? Will the ICFC, of course, probably will still continue, but stuff like the Powerbomb, other tournaments that maybe blew up more because of Corona, right? Do you think they'll still be around, and do you think they'll still function at the same level that they normally function?
Like I said, with the online tournaments, the good thing is that it's a lot. It's an ease of use and the fact that anyone can join. You don't have to go. You have to drive up to a place or whatever. So because what works with the ICFC is that it's intercontinental. The fact that like it's anyone from X region. It's not region locked, right? Well, as long as they're in this region, which is good. With and for some people, they might not have a local scene, no matter what. Like Dallas is good, but Dallas is mainly dominated by Rocket League, Overwatch. Oh, those are actually the main two: Rocket League and Overwatch. Like Rocket League and Overwatch is huge in Dallas. Like we have our own teams for it, Dallas Fuel, so or esports team. So I have a little bit of a harder time trying to find people who play Tekken in my league in my scene. But then the DFW, like Dallas, DFW that's what I'm saying. Like Texas is just so huge. Texas has a decent Tekken scene, but the fact that it's so fucking huge, it's kind of hard. Like it's bigger in San Antonio. It's a little bit better in Denton. So I think I'm gonna stick with doing Powerbomb regardless, just because of the fact that like even if things open up, they'll allow people who don't have the opportunity to have like a decent Tekken, scene in their area, because not everyone plays Tekken. It might be dominated by something else. Like mine, for example, being Rocket League and Overwatch. You'll have the option to check it out. And like I said, online, it's fantastic because of the fact that you can play with someone from X part of the U.S. and it's still not the best connection, but it's still playable. You know, as long as the connections are playable, as long as we have as long as the connection is playable, people are still going to do online, even if offline's a thing. It's not going to be as prominent, but you still have that option, you know, which is
Right.
good.
Yeah. And of course, right, I know with our local scene here, we've been just like shunned on our own island because of connection before, right? And because connection is starting to get better too, right? Since developers are looking at actually making good connection, especially with stuff like GG Strive, that's probably the biggest foot forward for Japanese fighters, right? Then from here
Yeah,
on out, it should become a bigger and bigger thing, and hopefully, maybe one day instead of having like something that's confined purely to locals, we can actually have some sort of tournament that can comprise like the entire West Coast or the entire U.S. and it feels like you're playing with that other person sitting right across from you. Whereas now, right, it's like, oh my God, I'm getting jitters, I'm getting like munched inputs, all these things that are happening.
yeah. I think another thing to add on to that is that it's also ease of use and time because of the fact like my local stuff didn't they had everything every Tuesday. What if I'm busy Tuesday? And then same thing for like WNF is a good example. It's every Wednesday. Oh shit, what if I'm busy Wednesday? Oh, and not just that, I have to drive like an hour or two to get there. Some people don't have that, convenience. So with online tournaments, you at least have the convenience of, hey, you can come by. Like ultimately, my goal, what my dream is, I'm talking a little bit in the future, like get X amount of money from whatever my career is, open up an arcade, host local tournaments there, right? That would be a pretty cool thing for me to do. But I think another cool thing to do would also have like an online version of it. So that way, people who are interested in what you do, who do like what you do, right? They at least have an offline version of it, and they have an online version of it. Online being anyone can join from, no matter what, as long as they're in the North America or whatever. And then you have your offline version, homeboys or like people from Texas. They could just drive on by if they really want to and come by and play. You at least have both ways to what do you call it, satisfies both parties. And that's another thing. I think a lot of other people, or especially the guys within the Tekken scene, are starting to understand that, oh shit, online's actually somewhat viable. Yeah, it's not the best. Don't get me wrong, because Tekken Netcode can only take you so far, but it's better than nothing, And even when offline does become a thing, people are still going to be kind of scared to go out, and some people don't like going out. And then also like that on, oh, I have to drive. Oh, what if I'm busy this day? At least I have online to kind of help me out.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even for a local scene, right? I don't have a car, I don't have a driver's license, so if it happens to be down to
Exactly.
the other side of the island, then it's like the best thing I have is like a bike or a scooter. So, like, am I gonna like really spend like 3 hours just like going over and doing that physical labor on like something where I could like, because I'd probably have to cross on the freeway, I'd probably get hit by a car or something. So it's like,
Yeah.
is it really worth that to go out there? Unfortunately, not really. I'm just lucky to
until
live in
like
the city.
until the US comes up with a good like that railway station that travels all the way around the US, I don't think anyone's gonna like that's when like all right, online's useless. But until then, it's still viable. That's all I have to really say.
Even
Online's
with
always going to be
that, right?
viable no matter what.
Yeah, but I mean, like even with that, you still have to like take the train. Why not? It's just like
Yeah,
why do
yeah,
that when you could just play online, and especially since
yeah.
like internet is actually going to be improving, of course, right? It's been improving ever so slightly, and hopefully now it will take off at maybe a bit more of an exponential rate since there's been more importance put on it, right?
Mhm.
It's probably going to develop at a rate where the trains will be obsolete at that point. So it's like, yeah, why get on a train and pay money when I could just like hop on the game that I bought? Let's see. I think that's mostly it. I guess as a final finishing question, how hard do you think it is to maybe build up a tournament from the ground up?
So one thing I want to like, I guess, some words to part with. You have to love the game. If you don't love the game, there's no point of fucking doing it whatsoever. There's no point of doing hosting a tournament because the reason why you're hosting a tournament is to get people together. One of the things that I believe is my favorite thing that I've done, especially in the Tekken scene, and just in general, I like bringing people together from different walks of whatever, right? And it allows me to figure like I didn't realize that Wasulu um, or Trojan lived like they were in Denton. Like Wasulu goes to the same fucking university that I do. You know how like dope that is? I didn't realize one of the best Eddie players in North America goes to the same university as I do. So you want to create a tournament if you're in love with the scene, and then allow so many open doors, just like so many of these things to open up. It's like, oh, like I know, dude, I didn't know you lived this far. Like I actually know, like we can hang out sometime. That type of stuff. Like I go on to Twitter. There's a huge group of people that I love to see on Twitter. They're all funny. They're all good people. You want to be welcoming. You want to love the community, even if it does have its low points. You still want to love the community. You want to be involved in the community. You want to speak to everybody, not just from the U.S., from EU, from Asia, from South America. It doesn't matter. I talk to all those guys. I do. Like Kai, Soyal Kai on Twitter. He's a guy from South America. I talk to him pretty often. Fantastic Falk Roman Brian player. I have a lot of homies in North America. EU, I have TGA, I have Bolt, I have what do you call it, Divine Tricks, like all these guys like I talk to pretty often. And then Asia, I have people in Pakistan that I talk to pretty, like Turnkey Chief and Mo and Fuck. I have all these guys that I talk to pretty often. That's what I mean. Like you want to build a connection, you want to build you want to be a likable person, obviously, and you want to talk to everyone in the community. Because what's the point of hosting a tournament if you're not involved in the community, right? Talk to the people in the community, be involved, love the game. That's the best way to do it. And then from there, everything's going to take off, right? I've created some of the best connections I think in my lifetime. I'm just playing fucking Tekken with some people, getting my ass whooped, and then giving some ass whooping backs just from playing Tekken with people. Like yesterday, I haven't. There's this other group of people that I play with. I got my ass whooped 5-0 by like one of my homies who plays Josie. But we still had a good time because at the end of the day, I'm playing for the love of the game. I don't care if I want to lose, and I'm playing to like have fun with my friends, technically speak. At the end of the day, and then. Allow that love, allow all that culmination to create that tournament, and then get all these people together and play. And that's where all that love comes into commentating, and things just go one off and another. But to bring it back to my original point, you won't succeed if you do not enjoy the game. That's 100% how I feel about it, and that's if you don't enjoy the game, then you're not going to be successful. You can hate on Tekken, that's fine, but you have to understand, like, you have to like give your reasons as to why you enjoy the game. Like I enjoy the game because there's so many things you can do with Tekken. All the fucking characters are fantastic. So many hype things can happen. The slow-mo, the moves, the satisfying sound effects, the music, like everything about Tekken. Even, like, I play the shittiest fucking character in the game, I play fucking Gigas. Well, actually, no. Eddie's worse now. I will say that. Eddie is way worse. But, like, Gigas is a meme. But I play this guy because I love him. I don't play him just because he's bad. I play him because I love him. I play him because I love down-2ing people. I play him because I love delay hop kicking people. I play him because I love 1-2. I don't have to think about anything else. I just want, you know what I mean? Be excited about the game. Otherwise, there's no point of doing any of it. That's the best answer I could give you about creating a tournament, getting involved with the community. That's the best thing I could say. Be in love with the game, and then everything else will continue on from there.
Right. Well, I think those.
Also, sorry, one more thing. Don't be an asshole. That's the last thing. Don't be an asshole. Yeah. Other than that, you'll be good.
Yeah, looks like you're describing to me the what I would call the anti-Leffen. I mean, that guy's I don't know, like, that guy just rubs me the wrong way, to be fair, and kind of shits all over Tekken. So, definitely not the guy I would get to host a tournament, but yeah. Well, again, beautiful last words. I think that pretty much covers everything, unless there's any other topics you think I may have missed.
No, you've been pretty thorough. Appreciate the interview, man. Everyone check out Homeboy Kalization. Check his stuff out. He's a wonderful Gigas main. Check out his YouTube. Check out his Twitch. Go check out his Discord as well. Follow him on Twitter. As far as everything else goes, I'm Bennythebuff, known as TK_Sahara on Twitter. You can follow me there. I do host my weekly tournaments. Now, I will be honest with you, they haven't been weekly because of the fact of school and because of the winter storm that hit Texas. But I have a huge following. I don't know what to do with it sometimes. So if you have anything, like any projects you're working on, like just message me and I'll do my best to promote it. Because at the end of the day, that's what I want to do. I want to help people be able to see the works of others. That's another thing Tekken is all about sharing and being open with the community. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. That's me.
Right, yeah,
Thanks for having me, Matt. Appreciate the interview.
yeah, no, I appreciate it very much. I know this has been like 2 hours of like just straight talking. Hopefully, I didn't exhaust you too much.
Oh no, I had a blast.
Yeah,
Thank you for having me.
and it's really the
100%.
first time like doing anything like this, so I'm very glad that you felt like this went very well. And here,
Yeah,
I plugged your Twitch for you in chat.
appreciate it, brother.
Yeah,
Thank
and
you, thank you.
see, if you want to plug any other sites too, like I know you have your Twitter, anything else, and feel free to do that right now.
Yeah, I'll just put in what my Twitter handle is. This is my Twitter handle right here, PK_Sahar. That's me right there. Check me out. Like I said, I if you have anything you want to share about Tekken, let me know. I'll be more than helping to spread it out towards the community. That's what I feel like we need to do at the end of the day. Show off, give love, and make this a better game, because at the end of the day, that's what Tekken's about. Tekken's about coming together, playing against their homeboys or playing against people that are strangers, doesn't matter, again, and playing for the love of the game and for some good-ass Tekken.